Hello, welcome to episode 33 of the Confidence Chronicles. My name is Amy English, and I'm your host. And before I dive into the topic today, I want to invite you to go ahead and click follow on this podcast. So if you're on Spotify, whatever platform you're on, you can go ahead and click the follow button. And this way you'll get notified every time a new episode is live. Typically, it's every Thursday. At least that seems to be working for now. But if you follow along, you'll get notified. You'll never miss an episode. It's a win-win. All right. And I would greatly appreciate it. Okay. So today, we're going to talk about body awareness. Now, here's where this is coming from. All right. In episode 32, I talked about body appreciation. And after that episode was published and scheduled to go live last week, Thursday, it dawned on me that while body appreciation is a very important topic, there's actually a step that comes before it, and that is body awareness. Now, I'm going to invite you into the way I think about this, okay? And it has a lot to do with how I experienced this on my own personal journey. Kind of think of it like steps, all right? So, in order to describe this, let me take us all a giant step back, all right? So, back in 2013, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and realized that emotional eating was a problem for me. It was keeping me stuck in this yo-yo, like on this diet roller coaster, because I was real good at losing weight, and then life would throw a curveball or whatever, life would turn upside down. I would turn to food. I would eat emotionally. I would stress eat. I would binge eat and then start putting the weight back on, right? So I started to see this as a pattern. And it was the breast cancer diagnosis that really highlighted this for me, because in that first month of my diagnosis, I gained 30 pounds because I was stress eating, because hi, breast cancer is stressful. Okay. So that's what started this whole process of changing my relationship with food, of healing and changing my relationship with food, and ultimately changing my relationship with my body. And that's where this comes in, because while healing your relationship with food is very important, it's an important part of this process, of the fat to fierce process, so is healing your relationship with your body. And body acceptance is a key part of this, but I almost feel that in order to get to body acceptance, and again, this was the case for me, okay, it might resonate with you. Everybody's different, so I don't assume the way I went about this is the way for everybody. Okay, we're all different. We all have different experiences and different circumstances that we're working through, right? But for me, what was helpful is, before getting to body acceptance came body awareness. And that is becoming aware of my body in a neutral and or positive way. Because let's face facts, okay? I was aware of my body back in the day when I was struggling with food and on the diet roller coaster. Oh, you betcha. Oh, yeah, I was very aware of my body and I hated my body. Okay. So the awareness I had of my body at that point in time was a very negative experience. Okay. I was aware that I had to change my body, that I had to fix my body, that there was a problem with my body, that my body wasn't good enough. Okay. Not fun. None of that feels good. Okay. So in order to shift that, first I had to recognize the way that I was thinking about my body and the way that I felt about my body. And I also had to uncover a different type of awareness for my body. And that's what I want to talk about today. And so when it comes to healing and changing the relationship that that you have with your body, it is my opinion that body awareness is that first step, okay? And here's what it looks like. Here's what it sounds like. That's what I'm going to get into here. All right? And before I dive into it, let me just share the steps, okay? As I think of them. And it goes like this. It's body awareness, and then it's body acceptance, body appreciation, body love. Like, that's kind of the way that it has worked for me. Those are the steps that I followed in this process. And so when we talk about body awareness, I'm just going to share this as it came up for me, okay, in my experience. So, as I've shared in the past, I started dieting at a really young age. And that tends to be the case for most of the clients that I work with in my private coaching practice. They have been on some form of a diet, some form of food restriction, starting at a really early age. And a lot of it was around the idea of having to lose weight as kids. Okay. And so, as you can imagine, when the idea of having to lose weight as a child is introduced, it can create complications with both food and with your body. Okay. Not to mention your confidence and all that, your worthiness and all that other stuff. But I'm talking specifically about the relationship with food and the relationship with your body. And so when I think back to, being 10, 11 years old and thinking that the solution to stop kids from teasing me and calling me names like Miss Piggy and Orca the Whale, the solution was for me to lose weight. Think about what that did when it came to my relationship with my body at a really young age. Okay. I learned very quickly to basically, just disconnect from my body. My body was a problem. Right. And so when that continues to go on year after year, for decades. Let's face it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I started doing this work. And if you think about it, that's 30 years of having a really negative relationship with both food and my body. And there is kind of a disconnection that happens in this process. And the disconnection is just that you're really not even considering your body, because all you want to do is change it because you just dislike it so much. So you're not even really paying attention to it, aside from having a lot of criticism towards it. Okay. That was my relationship with my body. When I think back to the way that I treated my body, just stuffing it with food, okay, binge eating, never felt good. I always felt like I was going to throw up afterwards. That's not helpful for my body, right? Um, Not wanting to look in a mirror, squeezing my body into clothes that were too tight, buying clothes that were too tight in hopes that I would lose weight, using those clothes as motivation, which, by the way, very rarely works. And it just feels like crap. I'm going to go on a little rant here. Okay. Let's think about this for just a second. Now, I describe myself as the queen of buying clothes that were too small back in the day. Okay. I would always buy motivation pieces that would hang in my closet, even though they were 2, 3, sometimes even 4 sizes too small. And I would use them as this way to motivate me to eat better and exercise more so that I could fit into those clothes. And yeah, sometimes I did get into those clothes and I would always just like bounce right back. But my point in sharing this is that entire process of trying to squeeze into those clothes that were too small felt miserable. It wasn't a fun experience. it wasn't a fun ride to get into those jeans, right? And yeah, it would feel good for the little bit that I got into them, but then I would end up gaining the weight back. Why? Because I never worked on my relationship with food or my body, okay? And that's the cycle. That's the cycle that we get stuck in. And it is not fun. And it is certainly not healing. Okay, rant over. So, back to body awareness. So it wasn't until I started going to life coach training that it dawned on me that I started to realize the disconnection between myself and my body. How I pretty much was just ignoring my body, aside from really just hating it. And it pains me to say this now, but I really did hate my body. There were some terrible things I said about my body. I didn't like to look in the mirror, certainly didn't like to get dressed in the morning. I can remember getting ready for work in the morning or getting ready for any event, really, and just sitting on the floor of my closet in a sea of clothes and just crying my eyes out because nothing looked good. I couldn't, effectively hide the fat with the clothes that I had. Things were too tight, all that stuff. It wasn't a great experience at all. And this reminds me of a story that I don't believe I've shared yet. And it might make me a little emotional telling you this, but it's coming up. So I'm going to share it. I'm going to run with it. When my daughter was 8, okay, so she's 16 now. So this was about 8 years ago. When she was 8 years old, it was the first time she asked me if she looked fat. And I remember her coming into my room and I remember her asking, Mommy, do I look fat in this? And y'all, I was devastated. Okay. I lost it because I was around that age, maybe a couple years older when it started for me, right? When I started getting teased and called Miss Piggy and all that stuff. And when I started thinking that there was something wrong with my body, that I looked fat, right? And so I was like, oh my goodness, this is happening now. I wasn't prepared for it, and it was devastating. And I immediately started thinking, oh my gosh, like, where is this coming from? Who made fun of her? Who said something? Who did something? And so I started to question her. I said, where did you hear this? What, did someone at school say something? Did somebody tease you? And she said, no, Mommy, no, I'm just wondering. I'm just curious. Do I look fat? And of course I was like, no, you look great. Like, you look beautiful. And, this was in the very early stages of me going through life coach training. And I just remember talking to my husband later that night after she had gone to bed. And I was just upset and like, where did she get this from? Where did this come from? And all of a sudden it dawned on me. It was one of these light bulb moments, right? And it hit me that she picked it up from me. She heard me standing in my closet, crying, asking my husband if I looked fat, criticizing myself openly and loudly. As much as I tried to conceal it, I was obviously not very successful. She picked it up from me. And that was a moment. That was actually a very pivotal moment in my journey of like, oh no, we are not going to repeat this. I'm going to figure out how to heal this for me so that I can help my children, right? Because while I can't keep them away from other people who will say things, or media and society at large, which continues to be very fat phobic, um, I can at least make sure that I am not continuing the self-criticism, which they're obviously like, kids learn from us, right? And so if they hear and see mom, criticizing her body, that's what they're going to know. That's what they're going to pick up on. So that's really kind of when Fat to Fierce was born, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, it wouldn't have been until like a year or so later that I developed this program, but that's kind of like where the groundwork was laid, so to speak, of like, no more. Like, I am not going to continue on this path. I want to show my children, show myself and my children that there's another possibility. Okay. I don't have to continue living in this world of self-hatred because it sucks. All right. Anyway, so all that to say, body awareness is really where it began. And so as I was in life coach training and learning all these new tools, I actually learned a tool to start feeling my body, feeling the sensations, understanding what emotions felt like in my body, understanding the different sensations. And it was really mind-blowing. And the reason it's so important, let me just share this. The number of people that I talk to, clients and otherwise, who don't know what their own physical hunger truly feels like until they get to the point of no return. Okay. They don't understand. They don't know what it feels like in their body. And sometimes people don't even know what satisfaction. Okay. So when you're eating, okay, you notice that you're hungry, you start to eat and you're starting to fill the tank, so to speak. You're starting to fill up on the food you're eating. A lot of times people don't know that sensation until they reach the point, like the other end of the spectrum where they're stuffed. Okay. So they only know extreme hunger and super stuffed. There's like a whole range of sensations in between those two extremes. And I didn't know it at the time, right? I would eat when I was super hungry, like to the point where I was like shaking, that like hangry. And then I would eat until I was completely stuffed. I like to call that, the Thanksgiving full, where you got to button your pants because you're so full. Those were the extremes that I was eating. And what I learned when I started paying attention to my physical form, like paying attention to my body, is that there are just so many other sensations in between those two extremes. So that's just a small example of learning to pay attention to your body, of having that body awareness. And the other thing that I learned, which was really powerful as well, is how often we ignore our bodies and pay attention to what our minds are saying. Okay. So let me describe it like this. Okay. If I say to you, like, what's your gut feeling? You probably have a good idea of what I mean by that, right? Like, what does your gut say? What's your gut feeling? That's like that's a response. That's paying attention to your body. And what I learned in my personal experience is that I wasn't doing that enough. I wasn't paying attention to my body and to my gut response enough, because our bodies are kind of sending us, not kind of, they are. Our bodies are sending us signals all the time. We need to learn to stop always paying attention to the mind. Okay. We need to learn to stop and pay attention and recognize what our bodies are telling us too. I kind of think of my body as like an antenna where if I'm following things that are right for me, if I'm doing things that are right for me, if I'm eating in a way that's right for me in that moment, my body is going to respond in a way that tells me like, yes, like, this feels good. For those of you who are familiar with human design, listen, I'm by no means an expert, but I do dabble in it a little bit. And it's been really fascinating to learn more about me and my body through that application. It's kind of what they're talking about, like listening to your gut, okay? Paying attention to the signals. We learned a lot of this in life coach training. So, anyway, okay. The idea here in body awareness is becoming familiar with the signals that your body is sending, with the sensations that you feel in your physical body, regardless of what your mind is telling you. And here's how this works when it comes to emotional eating, okay? And this is really fascinating. At least I think so. So, Pizza. I'm going to use pizza as an example because pizza used to be one of my favorite foods. All right. I'm sure I've shared this before on the podcast. We used to get pizza probably once a week for dinner. Like we'd just order pizza, right? Very common thing. A lot of people do this. Well, my mind was always the one saying, "Ooh, pizza sounds good. Oh, let's eat pizza tonight. Let's get pizza. I could really go for a slice of pizza or two," right? That's my mind. When I started paying attention to my body and the signals my body was sending about certain foods, I started to realize something really important. My body did not feel the same way about pizza. In fact, even as I talk about pizza right now, I'm starting to feel a little nauseous in my stomach area. Pizza, while my mind thinks pizza is fabulous, my body is like, nah. And that is because I physically feel terrible every time I eat pizza, to the point that now I eat pizza maybe a couple times a year. So, what used to be an every week occurrence has now become something that I eat, I don't know, maybe like 3 to 4 times a year. Isn't that fascinating? And it's because I started paying attention to how my body feels. And there is a reconciliation that takes place here, okay? Because the mind can be real powerful and it can want that pizza, okay? Just like it wants sweets, right? Or it wants, ice cream or cookies or crackers or pretzels, something salty, right? That's the mind. What does your body want? And that's where body awareness comes into play. Actually questioning what your body wants and paying attention to the physical sensations, the physical signals it is sending. Okay. And that's where this idea of body awareness actually comes before body appreciation. Because even before you can really start to practice body appreciation, you've got to be willing to recognize your body. And by recognizing your body, I mean by really just paying attention to the physical signals and sensations, like your gut feeling, okay? These signals and sensations that your body is sending you on a regular basis. Really getting in tune with what a -2 on the hunger scale feels like. You're probably like, Amy, what in the world are you talking about? Well, there's this fabulous tool called the hunger scale. I may have shared this before. I don't remember. But the hunger scale goes like this, okay? 0 is neutral. Neutral means you're not hungry, you're not full or satisfied, okay? You're just not either in the moment. -1 on the hunger scale. So we're going from 0. Okay. -1 means you might start to notice you're a little bit hungry. It might be time. It's getting close to being time to eat. -2 is where it's like you definitely have a rumble in your tummy. It's time to go grab some lunch. It's actually about that time for me right now. And then it continues all the way to -5, where -5 is you're starving. It's that hangry, like you're starting to shake, right? This is, again, we're paying attention to the physical body, not what the mind is telling us to do. Okay. Now, on the flip side of the scale, again, 0 is that neutral spot. Your +1 is when you're starting to eat and you're starting to fill up the tank. All right. You can notice the food is coming in and you might be starting to, that hunger is starting to subside. Right. And then you get to a +2 and you're satisfied. You can tell physically you're at an okay place. If you stopped eating right now, you're physically satisfied. You are no longer feeling the grumbling, like you could go for a walk, you still have some energy. And this goes all the way up to a +5, where +5 is like your Thanksgiving full that I mentioned earlier, right? You're stuffed. Okay. We don't want to get to that point because that doesn't feel good. So, when you're using this hunger scale and you're paying attention to the physical sensations of your body, ideally, you're eating right around a -2 and stopping when you're at a +2. Okay. Now, there's some variations to this. Again, perfection is never a part of this. Okay. It's just as a guideline to use. But the whole idea behind using this hunger scale is paying attention to the physical sensations that you're feeling in your body. Okay. This is body awareness. It is just pain. It is the willingness to pay attention to how your body feels, regardless of what your mind is saying. Okay. And we're not here to say that the mind is bad or anything like that. But like thoughts can absolutely get in the way because listen, it's your mind that is going to tell you to go eat the whole package of cookies. All right. It is your mind that's going to say, pizza sounds good tonight. But when you check in with your body and ask that same question and start to notice the physical sensations that come up when you ask these same questions, you may, okay, this is my experience, but you may start to notice that your body has a different response than your mind. Okay. And again, this is where we're practicing being more aware of our physical body. Because here's the other piece of this that I think is so important. This body that we have, like my body is my body here for this entire experience on this planet. Okay. My whole life, this is my body. Do I want to continue to live at war in this vessel that I carry with me throughout this entire experience? The answer is no. No, I don't want to continue to live at war with my body. Even if my body, like I want to make changes or I want to lose weight or I want to get more fit or whatever, that's fine. We can want to make improvements and changes, but we can do it, and this is where appreciation comes in, okay? We can do it from a place of appreciation, from a place of acceptance, from a place of love. And I just went in different order there, but that's okay. I think you get the gist, right? We can still want to make changes from a place of feeling good about ourselves physically, or even just feeling neutral about ourselves physically. Because as I've said before, neutral is a heck of a lot better than negative. All right. When we're in a constant war with our body and basically ignoring it because we dislike it so much, we're doing ourselves such a disservice. It is so much more difficult to accomplish any task when we dislike ourselves, when we dislike our bodies, when we're ignoring our bodies. Because with body awareness, and I've talked about the hunger scale today, I've talked about the difference between what your body and your mind are saying, right? Sometimes if we continue to ignore our body, like we're just basically letting the mind run with it. Okay. And we're not giving our body an opportunity to have a say in anything. And realizing the power within your physical form, the power of your body, so incredibly game changing. So I could talk about this for a really long time, but for now, I'm going to say this. For this week, I'm going to invite you to just consider where you are with body awareness, like in terms of being aware and recognizing your physical form and how it feels and checking in and asking those questions. This is where the pause comes into play as well, friends. And I didn't write down what episode that is, but it's in there if you look. Practicing the pause is very much about checking in with your body, okay? Checking in with your body, being aware of the signals your body is sending, and then acting accordingly. And even if your mind feels even if it feels very powerful with your mind, like your mind just keeps thinking about cookies, okay? That's okay. Just taking a moment to check in with your body, what that's doing is that's interrupting the autopilot response. Okay. This is kind of where all this comes together with emotional eating. All right. Because emotional eating is very much thinking with our minds. Okay. We want that food. We keep thinking of that food that we want, right? If we've had a bad day and we just want the chocolate or we just want the cookies or we just want the whatever. Okay. Those are all thought based. Being able to pause, check in with yourself, and check in with your body to see what the physical response is. Regardless if you go and eat the thing, you have interrupted that autopilot response. And that right there is what is going to break the habit. And plus, just being aware of your body is the path towards appreciating, lost my word there for a second, and ultimately learning to love your body. And even if you don't get to love, because I know love can be a stretch for a lot of people, just getting to like your body, getting to know your body, becoming an acquaintance with your body, all of that feels so much better than living in the struggle of disliking, hating, and completely ignoring your body. Okay. With that said, I hope you have a great week. Until next week.